Hey, folks, thank you for giving us the most precious thing you have, your time. And as always, we appreciate you subscribing, watching, sharing, however you're seeing this. If you're not subscribed to the Substack or the YouTube channel or any of the podcasting platforms, we're on all of them. We'd appreciate you doing so. Little bit of story time because I want to take a break. I know Iran's going on and there's politics and there's midterms, and I just got done doing a TV hit for the Canadians on the Iran and the economics of that. I was talking about roads on West Virginia radio this morning. I want to take a minute and just talk a little bit of political philosophy because once again, got some feedback from listeners, and they're just like, "Oh, you do this, or you're a moderate, or you're a or what?" So I want to talk through one of our core principles as far as how I talk about partisan politics, how I analyze it when I look at it, how I do my prep when I go to talk about politics or foreign policy or anything else, but especially partisan politics. Because I've kind of gotten the reputation, I hope, of being pretty fair. Um, whether I like you or not, if you do something good, I say this is good and you did it. If it's bad, I say you did bad. You can carve unaffiliated independent onto my voter registration card. It's never going to change. That's what it is. I be holding to neither party. I'm beholden to no candidate. Just because I voted for you into office, once you're in that office, my responsibility is now to hold you accountable to the office you're in. It is not to do whatever you told me to do because I voted for you. That's toddler think. My job as a citizen is to vote for the best available candidate that's fit for the office. If there's nobody fit for the office, I don't vote for them, and then hold them accountable once they get there. But there's something that I think about a lot way back when I was but a wee lad, pre 9/11 in the military, we were pretty cake job, not a lot going on. My roommate at the time was a volunteer firefighter, and he joined the local volunteer firefighting department, and I went with him, and I actually went to do the EMT stuff and really got into the firefighting part. And I was a volunteer firefighter, went through the training, really enjoyed it, spent good times at the firehouse, good camaraderie, an important job and a hard job. But, when you're 20, 21 years old, you don't think about things like that. You're just like, this is cool. Let's go do it. And I enjoyed it immensely. So there was one call we had that I've never forgotten, even, God, 25 years later since this has happened. And it's almost like a parable. It's like Jesus sat down on the rock and said, "This is what happened," and then did a great teaching of it, or an Aesop's fable or something. But a place called Gravel Ridge, Arkansas. That's right outside the back gate of Little Rock Air Force Base, where I was living at the time. We were Now it's part of the wider Pulaski County, but at the time we were not a paid department. We were still a volunteer department, but a very professionally well run one. But we went on a call down actually right out front of the firehouse, went through the intersection straight down the road, down a little 2-lane curvy country road. And it was at nighttime, and there was 2 cars that had been in an accident. And I want to preface this this is going to be a little lighthearted, that nobody was seriously injured, so we can kind of laugh about this one because this can be not a laughing matter. But what happened was we had 2 drunk drivers hit each other, and it was almost like some kind of like you designed it in a lab. This is before social media as we know it, and before smartphones. But um, a elderly lady, very well to do, very fancy car, dressed to the nines, string of pearls, fancy clothes, all that. And her fancy car had hit a pickup truck full of good old redneck kids that had had too much fun partying in a pickup truck. And there was a bunch of them because this is out in the country a little bit. And they hit each other on this road. Now, nobody was seriously injured, and we're sorting it out, and the cops are sorting it out, and we're cleaning it up, and so on and so forth. But I've just never forgotten that. You had 2 drunk drivers hit each other. What's the odds of that? When you take partisan politics, you should be able to just look at, "Oh, 2 drunk drivers hit that. Everybody's at fault. This is a horrible thing. Coulda went a whole lot worse. The fact that it didn't go worse doesn't make it any better. This was bad." But imagine if you start putting your prejudices and your priors and things that you think are true and just looked at that. Somebody could have walked up on that with a prejudice and go, "Man, that rich lady, obviously she's at fault. These are good kids. These are salt of the earth local kids. What was she thinking?" Or vice versa. Somebody that's, maybe a little more elitist would have came in like, "Them dumb country hicks. They're all drunk in a truck out partying, bunch of them. They're just in the back of a truck. They're not even wearing seatbelts. Look what they did." You can see how the priors would pile on top of that. But even with all that, nobody would ever look at 2 drunk drivers and go, "You know, the way to solve this problem, with a drunk driver, if I just get drunker and drive even more reckless than the other drunk driver, that'll make me better than that drunk driver. We'll just drunk drive worse than that drunk driver." Nobody ever says that because in the abstract, it's ridiculous to think that. And yet, in the almost decade now that I've been doing politics publicly and doing radio and TV and podcasts and writing and publishing, this is the exact argument I hear over and over again, especially on social media. It's a race to the bottom. We hear it all the time. We hear it from our elected officials. We hear it from our presidents. We hear it from commentators all the time. It's like, well, we know this is a bad thing, but we have to do it because the other side is going to make you do a bad thing. Why would you ascribe your agency to the other side? There's this old joke, because I grew up on a lake right beside a bridge, and our family name is on that bridge, my mom's people's. If you got on a bridge and somebody tells you to jump, do you just do it? Well, if you can and it's happened, you're pretty dumb. If you jump off Hughes's bridge, you're probably not gonna live, and if you do, you're going to the hospital and you're gonna be really badly hurt. But we can't seem to do that with partisan politics, but I just hear it over and over again. It's like, well, the right does this, or the left does this, or the Trumpians do this, or we're going to save Western civilization. That's one of my new favorite little red flags. Somebody starts talking about Western civilization, like, I wonder what they're into. Those drunk drivers, you wouldn't out drunk drive a driver and think you're going to accomplish something. But with our partisan politics, that's what we're trying to do right now. There's this race to the bottom thing. Now, there's really big philosophical words for this, especially in the Kantian tradition and words I can't ever pronounce, even though I studied them, universalism, whatever. But there's a thing in philosophy, especially in politics, and I'll just keep it to small words and talk slow so that I can understand it. Um, are people a means or an end to you? And with partisan politics, you figure out really quickly by actions, not words, are people means or are they an end? Are you empowering people to try to do things good for them, or do you just see people in an electoral capacity as a way to power? And the reason I bring it up that way, and the reason I try to analyze things that way, is because it cuts through a lot of the noise really, really fast. If you're just using a group of people to get power for yourself, does it really matter if it's because you're a corrupt capitalist or a Marxist? Does it matter if you're a fascist or, some hardcore fanatical traditionalist? The fact that you're going to use people to get power means that you're going to use people to keep that power and you're going to abuse people to keep that power. It's about the power. That's why we always talk about on this program and try to do it as a core principle, follow the money and look at the power structures because that tells you the truth. The words don't tell you the truth because the words is just a lot of cases in the bad faith media and social media environment we live in is like, well, that drunk driver went down that way. They broke those rules, so we don't need to follow the rules either. And if I got those people saying that in the abstract about things about like their kids' sports teams or their bank rules or something like that, they would be outraged that they had been done wrong, but yet they pitch that. If you want to get rid of all the rules and you want to have this race to the bottom and you want to try to out drunk driver the other drunk driver because somebody seeking power is feeding that into you and filling your soul and your mind with that you have to out bad guy the other bad guy just so this abstract politician figure can get more power, you're not fit to be a free people governing. And we can complain about the state of our country a whole bunch. But the truth of the matter is, we have a representative government and you are what you tolerate. So this is our fault. And mostly it's because we have become such an indulgent, prosperous nation that we want to be entertained by manufacturing problems where they otherwise wouldn't exist. And instead of actually fixing things like poverty or disparity of income or cost of living or fixing things like our national debt or doing things like having a coherent foreign policy and understanding where, when, and how to use our mighty military that's the best the world has ever seen, we're entertaining ourselves to death with nonsense. And a lot of it's being fed into us because we don't want to take responsibility for the filters on our social media news feeds. And I've seen people I love and care about who otherwise are they sit and they consume certain types of media, and I've watched it change them over the last few years because you are what you intake, and you can only intake so much of that. We gotta get that other side because they're gonna do X, Y, and Z before it starts warping your perspective. The truth is the world's really nuanced. It's really complicated. We have a big, diverse society. If you don't like it, that's another problem, but that's the truth. And the world is complicated. It's never been more entangled. And it's going to get more entangled as the world gets even smaller through technology. You have things happening in the world that you have no control over. You don't have control over geopolitics to a large extent. You don't have control over things like India becoming the largest population on the earth and how they're set up to explode in cultural and economics coming forward. And you're going to see more and more of that. You can't control China. You can't control the Middle East. You can't control Europe. We can't even control our own Congress, and we get a vote on them every 2 years. And we're getting ready to do it again. And how we vote is going to tell us something about what we are as a people. I keep thinking about them 2 drunk drivers hitting each other a lot, and I've thought about it more and more as I do commentary. How much politics really turns into 2 drunk drivers just hitting each other. And they are each standing in the middle of that road in Arkansas in the middle of the night, yelling at each other that it's the other person's fault, and the cops are trying to sort it out, and we got a bunch of drunk redneck kids that thinks it's funny, and we got a hoity-toity upper class lady who's just, in a fit because we gotta cut her steering wheel. And they have no perspective of what actually just happened and how lucky they are that number 1, they weren't dead, number 2, they weren't seriously hurt. They're just ate up with their own problems. One thing we didn't have on that back road in Gravel Ridge, Arkansas that night, though, was a media surrounding them, feeding them. They didn't have a social media feed saying, "Yeah, it was those kids' fault," or, "Yeah, it was that lady's fault." It was both of their faults. But boy, when I try to think of a metaphor or an example or whatever you wanna call it to explain partisan politics these days, I get hard pressed to find a better one. Everybody was wrong, but they were absolutely convinced they were right and did nothing wrong. And it could have been deadly. It could have been terrible. Those were high school kids mostly in that truck. Could have been awful. Partisan politics is important. Elections are important. Ideologies are important. The fights we have over those, when done between people of good faith, I'm not talking about yelling on social media and just, pounding your chest. Having those hard discussions are important if you're having good faith discussions with people you disagree with. But that's not what we're doing. What's called debate culture online and on YouTube and on platforms like this isn't debate at all. It's just yelling at each other. But what are we going to do when people tell you to have a race to the bottom, that we're going to outbad the other bad for the greater good of this elected official who's going to make it all better, which is always a lie and never true because they can't, they won't, and they'll just end up enriching themselves and taking your own freedom and power away from you because we have, 6, 7,000 years of recorded human history. That's how that works. And human nature is undefeated. So maybe, just maybe, whether it's foreign policy, economics, the midterm elections, the coming presidential elections, local bond issues. I was talking about roads on the radio this morning. Those are bond issues, massive, massive debt that the state took on to fix roads. Whatever the terminology is, if you have social media and news feeds that are just feeding you other side bad, we don't have any rules, therefore break the rules. You need to cut that stuff out of your feed. And I don't care what label or nomenclature it is, whether it's on your side, their side, purple people either side, whatever. Start gleaning that stuff out of your social feed. Don't let it get in your brain. Don't consume it. Consume people of good faith. Challenge yourself and follow and consume media you don't agree with, but those are good people that genuinely know what they believe and they genuinely believe that, and I disagree with it, but I'm going to hear them out because if you're right, it's just going to sharpen what you already know and believe. Don't be afraid of it. Don't guzzle from a nozzle of nonsense and then wonder why your politics go to nonsense. It's going to happen every time. Don't try to out drunk drive the other drunk driver and think you're going to accomplish anything. You are not. And we're not going to do it as a country. And our partisan politics that are now monetized. in social media and news media, that's not gonna really fix a whole lot of stuff either. So while it's important for us to indulge in that and you don't leave that line of defense undefended, I understand all those things. Like all things, moderation. And our core principle on these herd tell programs and then what I try to do, and everything I send out has my name on it. You got my email, you got my social media. Tell me, hold me accountable if you don't think I'm doing it. We'll hash it out. Get in the comments. A lot of I get the comments, I see them. Some pretty unkind, some very fair. If we're not doing accountability, then pounding your chest about what the other side is doing doesn't matter. Rules have to matter and rules have to apply universally. Otherwise, there are no rules. It's like the famous line in the famous play, once you cut down all the trees to chase the devil and you need a tree to hide behind and there ain't any, then what are you going to do? And we're not only doing that, we've decided to make it the primary business model of both politics and media. That's a bad place to be. Good news, you are 100% in charge of what you consume news-wise, and you are 100% accountable for what you put back out in the media sphere. And you can say, well, I don't have a platform. If you have a Facebook page, you have a platform. If you have a Twitter account, if you have an Instagram, if you have any kind of contact with any other human beings, you have a platform. And you are responsible for what you intake and you're responsible for what you put out. And I've got faith in you, the American people, and you, my friends, and you, my listeners and subscribers, that we can do better. And I think we can. And I think we will. And I think there's an appetite coming. There's always going to be those bad faith people, but people are getting kind of sick of it. There's going to be a pendulum swing on this thing. Do the right things. Don't try to out drunk driver the other drunk drivers and think you're going to accomplish something just because you slapped a partisan or ideological label on them. It's either right or wrong. Quit trying to be right online. Start focusing on getting it right, not just for us, but for everybody else as well. We appreciate your time. It is the most precious thing you have. That's why we open what we do with that. Make sure you're subscribing. We do this content for free. If you want to give us your money, we would love it. I know we have some expenses we got to really handle. So if you want to support us, we would appreciate that. YouTube, if you just want the podcast stuff, you can get it there. Also, iTunes, Spotify, iHeartRadio, all those platforms. Make sure you subscribe. We do see those numbers and they are going up and we appreciate it. We're going to keep working hard for you to do our core principles, turning down the noise, talking about the things that matter. And we appreciate your time greatly. We hope wherever you are and whatever you're doing and whoever you're doing it with, we hope you're well. We hope you are well fed. We'll talk to you again real soon for more Herd Tell.